Well, we also have U.S. Vice President JD Vance and his family in India on a 3-day visit. They're going to be in Delhi, they're going to be in Jaipur, they're going to be in Agra.
Okay.
Your mic, Prashant, I think you fix that. So we'll just keep an eye out on that. Those visuals coming in. That's the official airline of the United States of America. They seek to unlock economic opportunities, like it was said, to negotiate a bilateral trade deal. Let's see. We'll get the first visuals of JD Vance and Usha Vance off that plane right now. I reckon, it's when it's the vice president who travels. It's called the Air Force 2 and not the Air Force 1. So not sure the nomenclature that one has to use for that airline out there, but shortly enough we'll get the visuals.
By the way, Mangalam, I got my mic back, and kids as well. I mean, I think it's a full family visit.
But it seems like it's more of a cultural trip. Like, of course, there is going to be bilateral trade negotiations. There is a state dinner with Prime Minister Modi, but I think he wants to show.
I'm not sure, but I think this trip was planned before the election. I think because, or maybe now, of course, he travels in his capacity as vice president. But there you go, full, of course, protocol, etc. He's coming in, I think, at the Hindon Air Base, from where I think he'll travel to Delhi, and where, of course, I mean, there'll be official meetings, etc. I think there's a meeting with Prime Minister Modi later today, and then I think that's a Palam Airport, beg your pardon. And the team coming down, we should have the first pictures, first visuals coming through in just a bit from now. So we'll keep those visuals at the side of the screen, and we'll sort of talk about this and as those pictures start to come in. Well, let me welcome in Ajay Sahai, Director General and CEO at FIEO, and Anup Wadhawan, former Commerce Secretary, Government of India. Gentlemen, good morning. Great to have both of you here. Prashant this side. Mr. Wadhawan, if we can start with you, sir. This visit, of course, is coming at a crucial time. Of course, I'm sure trade talks, etc., will come up, but we don't know in what capacity, how will it happen. But my question to you, Mr. Wadhawan, is that U.S. team is in the U.S. this week, and there are going to be discussions. So how will this, in your opinion, work? There are these reciprocal tariffs which have been put on hold for 90 days. There is that, and then there is a trade deal. So when these discussions happen, you're discussing what? Because 8th of July, if nothing happens, these tariffs come into force again. So you've got to avert that. But obviously, you can't get a trade deal by then. That's only by fall. So how will this work out?
That the level of the Vice President, Mr. JD Vance, will be at a broad level. As far as the trade agreement is concerned, I think much ground has been covered. Looking at press reports, I think both sides have worked out the broad framework. There is some talk of a 19-chapter agreement. There is talk of a phase 1, which will be completed by September, October, I think covering the goods part, and a phase 2, which is supposed to happen after that, which I think will cover services and other issues. And within the phase 1, the goods part, there is talk of an early harvest within 90 days. So that will happen even before September, October. So I think much ground has been covered, and I think both sides seem to have developed a certain comfort about these negotiations, and I see them happening smoothly. As far as the Vice President's visit is concerned, I think that the discussion will be at a broader level and will go beyond trade. And then we must not forget his India connection. I think his India connection would have been one reason for him to be very keen to make this visit. So I think we have to see the thing in totality.
So this visit aside, as far as negotiations, you're saying that there's, from what you sense and what we read, etc., there seems to be a broad agreement on what all needs to be on the table, which needs to be up for discussion, right? Because we are at that stage here.
Right. So there is always a framework agreement you have when you start a trade negotiation. So I think that framework has been broadly worked out. All the timelines have also been worked out. And I'm sure there'll be an understanding on both sides as to what each side has by way of wants, what each side has by way of sensitivities. So I see a fairly smooth negotiation happening. And I think over the years, we are quite clear as to what are the aspirations the US side has in terms of goods market access. We are quite clear about what aspirations India has in terms of goods access and in terms of our services ambitions, especially our IT businesses, etc. So I feel very hopeful that we'll be able to.
Yeah. According to you, what? Okay. According to you, what would be the ask from the US side? 3 or 4 most important things.
Yeah. So clearly, is it for me the question?
Yes, it's for you, sir. Mr. Wadhawan, go on.
Clearly, autos, both four-wheelers, two-wheelers, including electric vehicles, items like ethanol, items like wines and bourbon and other alcoholic beverages, dairy and agri products certainly will be on the request list. So I think these will be the basic asks on the US side, and our asks are also quite clear. Textiles, gems and jewelry, leather products, our engineering products. Of course, pharma, they don't face very high duties, but pharma, there would be requests for facilitation in terms of regulatory approvals. Those take a lot of time sometimes. So I think both sides have these fairly well understood asks.
Okay, I think those are pictures coming in. First pictures coming in, JD Vance and Usha Vance coming down the stairs there, and so first visuals are coming in at this point in time, and by a protocol, you've got him being welcomed. I think that's Ms. Ashwini Vaishnav welcoming sort of Vice President JD Vance, and sort of visuals coming in as we speak. So that's from the Palam Air Base at this point in time. All right, Mr. Wadhawan, I'm going to come back to you in just a bit, because I want to ask you whether what you said, right, from the US side, agricultural products are going to be hard to do, and also there are tariffs, but there is also market access, etc. Right? There is the issue of VAT, for example. Which I don't know if that'll be contentious, etc. So just coming back to you, but let me get in Mr. Sahai into the conversation. Mr. Sahai, I was looking at this data, and I put this data out in the morning as well. This is from a firm which tracks container shipping around the world, about 65% of it. So it's a pretty good data set. And their data shows that US imports in the first week of April as compared to the last week of March, imports into the US fell 64%. Exports out of the US fell 30%. This is week on week. But this is first April data, and there would be that element of, getting shipments through before those, before that 2nd of April deadline. So you'll have to adjust for that. But this is still very large impact in that sense. Could you give us a sense of what the situation is out of and into India? What's the feedback you have?
In fact, so far the imports into India is concerned, that's not much impacted. On the export side, since we have 90 days pause period, companies are trying, and in fact, buyers are also insisting that they should ship the goods because there is certainty on the tariff front, at least in the 90 days. Nobody knows within 90 days whether BTA will be concluded, whether there will further deferment or the reciprocal tariff will come into effect. So probably there will be some front loading, which was there earlier also. Probably that may continue, subject to availability of inventory and also the production cycle for number of products. So as of now, both the sides are trying to push within the 90 days. And at the same time, we are hoping that, as told by Mr. Wadhawan, we may have at least first tranche with reference to the tariff negotiation, and we can take other issues subsequently, because as of now, the tariff is the priority.
Mr. Sai, what you're saying is, so anything that you're agreeing to in terms of contracts, etc., exporters and otherwise, July 8th seems to be the outer limit for now, right? That's the 90-day deadline.
No, that's true, because up to 90 days, we know there will be only the MFN plus there will be a baseline tariff of 10%. Nobody knows. So it's not that the Indian exporter, even the foreign buyers, the US buyer, they're also looking from that perspective. Because if the duty goes, let us say, to 26%, they will also require more liquidity, as the duty has to be paid upfront at the time of clearance of shipment. So they have to have the excess liquidity at their disposal also. So to the extent possible, both sides are looking into whether they can push the shipment within 90 days. If it is not possible, and we will see what happens there. We are also hopeful that at least some relief to India will come as we have the early mover advantage. We are already negotiating the BTA, and we hope that at least the first tranche will lead to tariff, or if not, the early harvest will be in place to take care of the lower duty on the Indian exports.
And in terms of sectors, Mr. Sahai, you heard Mr. Wadhawan, textiles, gems and jewelry. What specifically, according to you, should be in focus as these negotiations go through?
In fact, our focus should be on the product which we are exporting to the US, and also the number of products where shift from the market from China will happen. We did a study and we observed there are 175 tariff lines at 6 digits, where India's export to the US is roughly 50% of the total export in respect to 175 tariff line, and so is the US. So that can also be a priority area. We have to look into our existing product of exports as well as the potential product of export to get the duty relief for them.
Mr. Wadhawan, you briefly mentioned in terms of US's demand, agriculture, horticulture, etc., right? Would that be a problem?
I don't think it will be a problem. There will be available business you typically have staging of duties so that you don't come down immediately to zero, or it comes down to a moderate level over a certain period of time. You have things like tariff rate quotas, where you restrict the quantity which comes in, and you have maybe a moderate duty, not a zero duty. You have things like minimum import prices, only the higher end dairy products, higher end, wines, etc., can come in so that they serve a separate niche and they don't threaten the Indian domestic manufacturers. So I'm sure they'll find a way out. As you mentioned, the main thing will be the SPS protocols, sanitary and phytosanitary protocols for agricultural produce and dairy produce, which are very important in the interest of human health, animal health, plant health. So those are important. American dairy products have this issue of, the cows being fed with sort of animal-based feed. So that is a issue with us. It's a cultural, socio-cultural issue in India. We've been opposed to having dairy products where the animals are fed with animal feed. That sort of undermines the concept of milk, being vegetarian and dairy products being vegetarian. So we'll have to find a way around that problem. And last time we were discussing with the US, some methods were being found, to have ring-fenced production where the animals are not fed animal-based feed. So I'm sure there are mechanisms available for dealing with those problems. We are going to have to deal with them also with EU. We'll have to deal with them when we are negotiating with UK. So these mechanisms are, I think, on the table.
That's a very interesting point, which you bring up, and there'll be so many of these sort of specific things, right, which will come up across various product categories, but very interesting. We'll leave it here for now, Mr. Wadhawan and Mr. Sahai. Appreciate both of you joining us, but we'll invite you back as we get more information in terms of how these negotiations, these talks are proceeding, and continue to get more perspective as well.